It was almost 11 o'clock on a Tuesday night when my phone buzzed on the kitchen counter. I remember that moment clearly. I had just made myself a cup of chamomile tea, the way I always do before bed now. My doctor told me to slow down a few years back, and chamomile tea became part of that promise I made to myself. So there I was, 61 years old, standing in my kitchen in my old cardigan, thinking about nothing in particular. Just the quiet of the house. Just the warmth of the mug in my hands. The buzz surprised me. Not many people text me that late anymore. I set the mug down and picked up the phone. The name on the screen was Vivian. My neighbor from across the street. Now, I should tell you a little about Vivian. Vivian moved in about 3 years ago, after the Henderson family sold their place and relocated to Arizona for the warmer weather. She came alone. Just her, a moving truck, and more boxes of books than I had ever seen any single person own. She was around 40, I figured. Dark hair, always put together even in casual clothes, the kind of woman who carries herself like she knows exactly where she is going, even when she doesn't. We had been friendly from the start. The kind of friendly that means you wave from the driveway, you bring each other the mail when the other is out of town, you chat briefly over the fence about the weather or the neighborhood or whether the new coffee shop on Elm Street is worth trying. But never anything deeper than that. We lived quietly parallel lives, Vivian and I. So when her name appeared on my phone at nearly 11 at night, I felt a small flutter of concern. I opened the message. It was a photograph. The photo showed a room, her living room. I recognized it, and in the middle of the room, surrounded by open boxes and half-assembled furniture, was a small wooden bookshelf lying on its side. Beside it, a scattered pile of instruction papers and screws and dowels. Below the photo, her message read, "Dennis, I am so sorry to bother you this late. This is embarrassing, but I have been trying to put this shelf together for 2 hours and I think I've done something wrong. I don't suppose you'd know anything about furniture assembly. You don't have to help tonight. Really, I just didn't know who else to ask." I read that message twice. I don't know who else to ask. Those words stayed with me. Not because they were unusual words, but because I recognized them. I had felt that way myself, more than once, in the years since my wife Patricia passed. There is a particular loneliness in being capable and independent and still hitting a wall that stops you cold. In having a whole address book of names, and still not knowing which one to call. I typed back, "Give me 10 minutes. I put on my shoes, grabbed my reading glasses and a small flashlight I keep in the kitchen drawer, and walked across the street. Her front door was open, just the screen door latched. The porch light was on. I knocked softly. "Dennis, thank you for coming," she said, and the relief in her voice was genuine and unguarded. That struck me. Vivian always seemed so self-contained, so composed. But that night, in her house, surrounded by the evidence of her efforts, she was just a person who had tried her best and needed a little help. We knelt down together beside the shelf. She handed me the instruction paper, a bit crumpled and marked up with her pencil notes, and I put on my reading glasses and started at the beginning. "You skipped step 4, I said, after a moment. "Easy to miss. The print is very small." "Step 4, she repeated, and let out a long, tired laugh. 2 hours. 2 hours and it was step 4. "Don't feel bad," I said. "I once put together a television stand 3 complete times before I realized I'd been holding the instructions upside down. Patricia never let me forget it." She looked at me then. "Patricia, is that your wife?" "She was," I said. "She passed 5 years ago." "I'm sorry," Vivian said. And she said it simply, without the awkward scrambling that people sometimes do. Without rushing to fill the space with other words. She just let the sorry be what it was. We worked together for about 40 minutes. I held pieces in place while she tightened the joints. She passed me screws one at a time, each one precise and patient. We talked while we worked, the easy kind of talk that happens when your hands are busy and there is no pressure to perform. I learned that Vivian was a school librarian. That she had moved here from Seattle after a long stretch of years she described only as complicated. That she loved biographies, especially of ordinary people who had done something quietly extraordinary. That she was teaching herself to cook, properly, for the first time at 42, because she had spent too many years surviving on takeout and granola bars. She learned that I had worked as an electrician for 35 years. That I had 2 daughters, both grown, both living in other states. That I kept a small vegetable garden in the back that gave me more tomatoes than I could ever eat. That I had been learning, Slowly, how to live alone in a house built for two. At some point, the shelf was standing. Vivian stepped back and looked at it, and there was something wonderful in her expression. Not just satisfaction, though there was that. Something more like relief. Like a small battle had been won. "Can I make you some tea?" she asked. "Or coffee?" "I think I have coffee." "Tea would be fine," I said. So we sat in her kitchen for another hour, drinking tea and talking. She had a collection of mugs that each seemed to have come from somewhere different: Portland, New Orleans, a museum in Washington, a little beach town in Maine. She noticed me looking at them. "I collect them from places I've been," she said. "Every city I've lived in or visited. They're easier to carry than souvenirs. And every morning when I pick one, I remember something." "That's a good habit," I said. "What do you collect?" she asked. The question surprised me. I sat with it for a moment. "Quiet mornings," I said, finally. "That's the best I can do these days. When I wake up early and the neighborhood is still and I have my coffee on the back porch and the garden is just beginning to get some light. I collect those. I hold them as long as I can." Vivian was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "That sounds like something worth collecting." I walked back across the street a little after midnight. The neighborhood was completely still. The kind of still that only comes in the deep middle of a weeknight, when everyone is asleep and the streets belong to no one. The porch lights made small warm pools on the sidewalk. My kitchen light was still on, the way I'd left it. I stood at my door for a moment before going in. I thought about the question she had asked. "What do you collect?" And I thought about all the things I had stopped noticing, somewhere along the years. The way autumn smells the first morning you need a jacket. The particular satisfaction of a drawer that closes just right after you fix it. The sound of a neighbor's laughter coming through an open window on a summer evening. I thought about how long it had been since I had really talked to someone. Not exchanged pleasantries, not made small talk over the fence, but actually talked. Patricia and I used to talk for hours. About everything and nothing. We were both morning people, and we had this long habit of sitting at the breakfast table long past when we should have started the day. Just talking. I missed that more than almost anything. And somewhere that night, I had found the edges of it again. That was 2 years ago. Vivian and I have become, in the quiet way that middle age allows, genuine friends. Not dramatic friends, not the kind with great adventures and stories to tell, but the kind that matter most, I think. The kind where someone knows what kind of tea you prefer and remembers things you mentioned once in passing. Where you can sit together without needing to fill the space. Where help flows easily in both directions, without keeping score. She brings me things from her garden sometimes. She started growing herbs this past spring, in terracotta pots on her porch. I fix things when they need fixing, the way I always have. We have coffee on Sunday mornings occasionally, and sometimes that stretches into the better part of the afternoon. Last month, she knocked on my door with a biography she thought I would enjoy. A farmer from Vermont in the 1940s who spent 50 years recording the weather in a notebook every single day. No reason except that he felt the world deserved to have someone paying attention. "I think you'll understand why he did it," she said. She was right. I did understand. Here is what I have come to believe, at 63, after a life of useful work and quiet love and ordinary days. The moments that change us are almost never the large ones. They are the small ones that arrive sideways, in the middle of a Tuesday night, in the form of a photograph of a fallen bookshelf and a message that says, "I don't know who else to ask." Those moments are invitations. The question is whether we answer them. I have learned, and I am still learning, to answer them. To put on my shoes. To grab my flashlight. To walk across the street. To show up when someone needs someone to show up. Because the truth is, and this is the part one want you to hold, we all have a bookshelf on its side somewhere. Some problem we have been circling for 2 hours in the late night quiet of our houses. Some step we skipped without meaning to, some small thing that has brought the whole project to a halt. And we all deserve someone who will come over, put on their reading glasses, and start at the beginning. The chamomile tea can wait.